Looking at energy prices, we can see several trends which are concerning. However, if you take a look at the crude oil price trend, you can see that it actually got over $100 sometime. Let's see now when that was, if I can. So that was at 11 a.m. Got to $101. Now it's at $94, bouncing off 93. I don't know if this is necessarily market manipulation of the crude oil prices, but one thing is certain. The President Trump administration doesn't want this to go over $100, and so it certainly would be in line to see the effort on the Trump administration to try to do everything they can to keep the price under 100. That seems like a psychological barrier, after which then many people start talking about inflation and higher prices and people cutting back on their purchases, companies cutting back on employees, higher transportation costs, so all kinds of consequences. But for the moment, it's staying a little over 93. And what would be the motive? Why is it not going over $100 considering everything that's going on? Well, we have a ho-hum attitude, I think, of the market. They're pretty much thinking that this will be a short conflict and that the consequences will not be long-term. And so this is the crude oil price. Now, if we go to the diesel price, we have a much different picture. So you see a spike in June of 2022. Of course, this was the year that Russia invaded Ukraine, and there was sanctions on Russian energy, and this was a shock to the energy market, and that shot up the prices, energy prices. So you can see that we're actually at a point here, 5.8, which really would be the most recent high in the last 5 years. And so now we're at 5.12, and it's spiking upwards. This is definitely a concerning sign for the energy market. Now, if we go over to jet fuel, we have kerosene type jet fuel prices, U.S. Gulf Coast. So not too sure why this chart is moving back and forth and here and there. But anyway, you can see again there was a spike in 2001 after the terrorist attack in the United States. There was a spike in 2008 after the market crash. There was a spike again in 2002 based on the war in Ukraine. And now we're looking at another spike. And the high here was 4.63, and now we're at 3.48. So still quite a bit off from the highs, but we're moving in that direction. If we go to heating oil, you can see here the price of the heating oil, and that is spiking from basically early in the year, almost got down to 2, now 4.27. So practically has doubled since the low point of this year, this current year. If we go to crude oil prices in Singapore, we are looking at Singapore dollars. We're looking at, again, this price has come off of its high, and so we had a high here of 127. If we go, let's see now if we can find, okay, we have 14-day chart. So there was a high of 143 back earlier in March, about 10 days ago, and then it has kind of gone up and down here, fluctuated around the $120 price range, and it continues in the $120 price range. So you can see that it is now, if we go back even more, if we go back a year, then there you see the jump in the price, even from earlier in the year, January, beginning of the year, 74, now up to basically 120. So this again is a worrisome sign. If we go into the UK natural gas price, that also is spiking. If we go to a 5-year chart, you can see that it spiked twice in the same year that Russia invaded Ukraine. We're reaching a high of 640. So 640. So now we're at 156, quite a bit off those highs. So there's quite a bit of room left. But again, if you just go back from the last 6 months, we're now in starting to see a trend. And if we go into the urea price, which is used for the fertilizer, you can see here the increase in price. And if we go back 5 years, you'll see a spike in 2022, went up to a high point of 1,025. Now we're at 610. So we're way off those highs. But if you just go back to 1 year, then you see this trend. So this is a worrisome trend. And speaking of fertilizer, here we have a fertilizer index. And so again, we had a spike in 2022, 767. We go back to if we go to the current price, 501. So quite a bit off that 767. If we just look at 1 year, so there's the trend. You can see where the price is going. Gas prices, I just picked a random city. Here's Orlando. Okay, let's go to Los Angeles. Okay, we're going to go to Los Angeles. Okay, we're now into almost $5 a gallon, getting up there. If we go to New York City, New York, this is Forest Hills, New Rochelle, Queens. So the price is much lower in New York. If we go to, let's go to Chicago. Okay, 3. So there's quite a bit of difference. 339. One last city. Okay, let's go to just pick a random city. San Francisco. Here we go again, very close to $5 a gallon. So I don't think I can get a let's see if we can get gas price charts. Okay, so we have a 18th month average retail price chart, and prices were actually coming down in January as we prepared for President Trump's arrival to be inaugurated. Once we got to January 20th, the trend came, rising trend, and then it just took off. So I think that tells the whole story you need to know about where things are going. And of course, gasoline, diesel, all and everything needed in the the food cycle, from from the feed, or from the fertilizer to the crops, the feed to the chickens and the beef, etc. All these expenses start to be reflected, because businesses aren't charities. They can't just eat the cost, something that President Biden was asking people to do as the prices rose. It just seemed to be completely disconnected. I think also with President Trump, he's looking very disconnected from the situation. So finally, let's take a look at beef prices here in Walmart.com. So we have this chuck beef tender roast, $8.76 a pound. This used to be around $4.79, a little over $5, and it has just gone up. If we go to, let's go to another type of, even like one of the cheapest forms of hamburger is now $6.38 a pound. It was before, it was much lower than that. And if we go, let's go to, let's see if we can find, we're going to go to sirloin, or maybe we can go to top sirloin. That'll bring up some other cuts. So top sirloin, $14 a pound. Top sirloin beef steaks, $13 a pound. Sirloin tender steak, $16 a pound. Let's take a look. The Milanesa, that's actually lower, 8.82. But if we go to the flank steak, that certainly looks like flank steak to me, not flap steak. I don't know. I haven't heard of flap steak before, but there it may exist. Anyway, I'm just going to open this up, see if we can. Yeah, it's flap. So I guess this is a tapa barriga. So I guess this is a new type of steak I'm not familiar with. Anyway, that is $15 a pound. So anyway, and we are at the beginning of these cycles. So if we go back into the 5-year, this is for the fertilizer. Back in 2022, we're up to $7.74. We're at $500. This has a lot of room to move. This can go up a lot. So imagine if you take these prices and then you add 25 or even 40% to these prices. Now the average American isn't going to be buying steak, because you're paying maybe $25 a pound, $30 a pound, or even $35 a pound for the top cuts. People with normal salaries aren't going to be buying this. And why is this happening? Well, of course, we know the conflict going on in the Persian Gulf, and the cutoff of energy to the world markets. So you lower the supply, the demand will push the prices up, and can push it up a lot. Right now we're still at the lower end of the spectrum, so there's a lot of room for this to continue to increase. But anyway, I thought I would just bring this to your attention. So if you're going to the store, you will see the prices now, and just wait in a month or two, these prices will really start to go up. So if you like paying $30 a pound for hamburger, or $40 a pound for filet mignon, or for one of the top cuts. So that's where we're heading, and this is a disaster really for. I think if you're Bill Gates, you don't go to the store, probably never, and you don't even know what the price per pound on some of these cuts are. He doesn't really worry about it. He has many other things he's thinking about. There's no difficulty shelling out whatever the prices are going to be if you are, someone like the head of Oracle or one of these other companies. Also, you're not thinking about this at all. But if you're an average individual and you may be getting $20, $30, or $40 an hour salary, then it's like 1 hour of salary just for 1 pound. And then now think, if you have a family, you have several members to your family, and you have to you're putting food on the table 7 days a week, at least 3 times a day, and then you start doing the math, and this becomes unsustainable for a lot of families. So they won't be buying beef, and so then that hurts the American ranchers who have it hurts a lot of people. And so, but I don't see it getting any better, and in fact it's just going to get worse, because I've already showed you all these charts, and this is let's go to the 5-year chart. So heating oil is kind of right up there at the top of the let's go to the jet fuel. This eventually will be reflected in your airfare and all the costs related to running airports. If you're going to go to an airport and you're going to fly from the United States to Europe or to Japan or Australia, these fuel costs, they keep on going up. That's going to mean really high airfare. So all I can say is the future's not looking bright, and there is no end in sight at this point to this conflict. So buckle up and get ready for a bumpy ride. It's gonna hit everyone in the pocketbook. As soon as you start paying for the higher gas, the higher meat, the higher groceries, the higher heating costs, air conditioning costs, everything is going to go up. Maybe some areas you won't see much of a rise. Things that items that don't need to be transported very far and don't require much of an investment to produce. But most things in this country are moved on in trucks and put out into stores, and so stores also need to keep the lights on, need to pay employees. Employees need higher salaries because inflation begins to rise. So anyway, this is like Biden 2 at this point. We're starting to see the inflation creep in, this price spike. So anyway, I'll keep it there. Thank you for joining me here at the Rowell Report. If you like this video, please hit the like button, share, and subscribe, and I look forward to seeing you back for the next one. Take care. Bye-bye.